Hi, I'm Melissa, and this is the Book Break. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to Dr. Joseph Q. Jarvis, the author of a new book that's great for Easter and great for anyone interested in Israel. The book is The Hope of the Promise, Israel in Ancient and Latter Days. And so before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and show a quick introduction to the book. All right. Joe, will you tell us a little bit more about your book?
I'd love to. The book is my gift to people who might have an interest in the Bible. I love reading the Old Testament especially, and find it such a surprising book, and what a great gift it is from the Jews to all of us today in the modern world. And it was written all there in Israel, and I love going to those places. I feel the impact of that message, and I'm wanting to share it with people.
Yeah. And something that I really loved about your book is there are over 100 images that are originals. And I would love for you to tell us more about the images, but you also do tours in Israel for anyone that's interested. And by being there, you were able, like you said, you wrote it while you were there. These images were taken while you were there. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, on one tour, which was a very small private tour for my mother, who's 90 years old, and her sister, who is a photographer, we took special care to give my aunt, the photographer, a chance to find exactly the right way of photographing each of these beautiful places. And it's her pictures that we're seeing. It's a wonderful part of the backstory that my mother and I could go with her, my aunt, who came and stayed with our family when she was a teenager. So I've known her since I was very small, to have her part of this whole experience of bringing this gift to people who love the Bible.
Yeah. And I really like how you take the images and then you give us insight on how that applies to biblical events and to us today. I'd like to show a few images and have you tell us about them.
Oh, great. This is a model found at the Israel Museum of the ancient city of Jerusalem. And this part of the model is picturing the city of David, the part of of Jerusalem where King David lived. That's his palace. Where that really was located in Jerusalem is currently an active archaeological site. And they are finding all kinds of artifacts that date back to the Davidic reign. Him and his, in the following kings after him in his line. It's a remarkable part of the documentation that things that are said in the Bible actually happen there.
Yeah. Let's bring up another one.
This is a picture of the Roman ruin of Beit Shan. It's a city that was founded long ago in Old Testament times. It was the site where King Saul died fighting the Philistines just before David was made king instead of him. It's one of the most remarkable Roman ruins that anyone can find anywhere. And it really makes you feel, as you walk through this place, like you're right in the middle of a Roman town. It gives you a real feeling of what the Roman program was all about.
That's great. And what about this one?
This is a Greek temple celebrating the god Pan. Pan was the only Greek god and Roman god who allegedly died eventually. All the other ones were not ever said that they did, but it happened just as Christianity was overtaking paganism as the main religion of the Roman Empire. This is located in the city of, or the ancient city, now ruined, of Caesarea Philippi, a Greek city where Jesus took his apostles to ask them the question, whom do men say that I am? Who do you think I am? It's a wonderful part of the New Testament.
Yeah. And tell us about this wall. This wall has a lot of significance to it, and it's thousands of years old, if I'm remembering correctly.
This is a 2,000-year-old wall. It's now referred to as the Western Wall and sometimes as the Wailing Wall. It is the most sacred site in Judaism. It's as close as they can get to the Holy of Holies, that most sacred part of their ancient temple. It was built by King Herod the Great, this wall was, as a supporting structure for Temple Mount, with the second temple up on top, above what you're looking at now. Today, Jews from all over the world come to that wall to pray. They come wearing the robes that you saw them wearing. It's a very sacred site for them. You feel the sense of the sacred when you're standing there with them.
Yeah. And you have so many images in this book. And tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you talk about in the book, because you give us a lot of in-depth insight about biblical events. And that's part of what makes it such a great Easter gift. But really, anyone that wants to understand the Bible more through Israel can do that with this book. Tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you talk about.
I find the Bible to be a surprising book. The message that keeps coming up out of the pages to me is that God cares about each one of us. He wants us to succeed in life. He wants us to be happy. He offers us peace. He wants us to succeed, so he makes it possible for us to do that. When we have problems and we bring them to him, he loves us and helps us with them.
Yeah.
One of the moments that I found most surprising the first time I went to Israel was finding an old ancient staircase, a stone staircase that came up out of the brook called Kidron, or the Kidron Valley, up onto a part of Jerusalem where the high priest was supposedly in residence during Jesus's time. And I asked about that stone staircase and was told that it might be as old as having been built and been there in Jesus's time. If that's true, that probably was the staircase he walked up after he was captured, before he was tried, his first night, right before his crucifixion. And when I learned that, I suddenly connected with the story, that surprising story in the Bible. So those places are so meaningful to me. Every time I have a picture in the book, I try to tell the story that's behind it and tell people why it has such impact today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I love that. And when I was going through this, I was thinking to myself, it is a book where you could sit down and read it from cover to cover, but you can also read a piece of it and think about it. What would you say is one of your favorite parts of the book?
Well, I love starting out with the story of King Herod the Great. One reason for that is King Herod is a documented historical figure. No one doubts that he lived. Everybody knows what he was like. He was a very cruel and vicious person. He changed the entire economy in Judea of that era, Jesus's era, so that he was enriched and the average person out there was made poor, many of whom became so poor that they had a hard time supporting themselves and their family. This was the world Jesus was born into. The New Testament tells us King Herod was king when he was born. It's a great part of the story. And the other person at the other end of Jesus's life, the Roman leader who was there at his trial, also is documented right where King Herod built his major palace on the Mediterranean coast. So I love being able to find those historical places that say Jesus lived at the time of these two men. We know they were really there. The New Testament is telling a story that really happened. This is important for us to know. The history has impact on us.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I think is really interesting about you too, like we've mentioned before, you do lead tours. And so while COVID has prevented that from happening, it's hopeful that things will get better soon and you'll be able to lead tours again. So for those that are interested, they can go and check out more about you on your website. You have a couple of different websites, but at latterdayprinciples.com. And they can also follow you on Facebook and Twitter. And I would say everyone should check out your tours. I know I want to. And you're hoping for an Israel tour in 2021 or 2022, right?
I'd love to see travel reopen this year. I'm a public health physician, so I'm cautious about it. And I'll wait until I'm sure it's safe. But the good news is the state of Israel is ahead of almost every other nation in vaccination. So they'll be prepared before maybe we in the United States are prepared to go anywhere internationally. But I'm hoping that it will be this year, yes. And I post about this and keep people apprised of the possibilities on my travel website, mojotravel.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today with me, Joe. It's been great talking to you.
Good talking to you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for joining us on the book break. We'll see you next time.